Imagine a place where time stands still, and everything you know and love drifts away irretrievably. It is there, according to the visions of saints, that souls descend to eternal separation from God. Hell, not just a word, but a reality, appears in the accounts of mystics as a deep abyss filled with despair and loneliness, beyond comprehension or thought. The saints, standing as if on the boundary of two worlds, uncovered terrifying secrets of this chasm in their visions. This is not a fairy tale or metaphor. It is a warning that seems to transcend time and space, reaching anyone who dares to listen. What is hell truly? Is it merely the echo of ancient legends, or could it be a hidden spiritual dimension whose existence is affirmed by those who have seen it with their own eyes? Let us embark on a journey through stories that, though filled with dread, have the power to shed light on the meaning of human life and the choices whose consequences extend beyond earthly time. First, we will examine the gripping vision of hell revealed to Saint Veronica Giuliani, a mystic of the 17th century known for her extraordinary spiritual experiences and profound union with God. Saint Veronica, a Capuchin Poor Clare, was suddenly transported during prayer to a world full of pain and hopelessness, a vision that remains one of the most stirring testimonies in the history of the Church.
It seemed to me that the Lord showed me a very dark place, yet it burned like a great furnace. There were flames and fire, but no light could be seen. I heard screams and noises, but nothing was visible. A terrible stench and smoke emanated, but nothing in this life can compare to it. At that moment, God conveyed to me a message about the ingratitude of His creatures and how deeply grieved He was by this sin. And then He appeared to me in full passion, scourged, crowned with thorns, bearing a living heavy cross on His shoulder. He spoke to me in this way: "Look and see this place well, which will never end. My justice and severe indignation stand there for torment." At this time, it seemed to me that I heard a great noise. Many demons appeared, each holding beasts of various kinds bound with chains. These beasts instantly transformed into creatures, people, but so terrifying and hideous that they frightened me more than the demons themselves. I trembled entirely and wanted to approach the Lord, but alas, I could not get closer. The Lord was covered in blood, standing under this immense burden. Oh God! I wanted to lift the blood and take the cross, and with great anxiety, I longed to understand the meaning of it all. In a moment, these creatures took the form of beasts once more, and then all were cast into that very dark place. At that moment, I felt as though I were in ecstasy, and it seemed to me that the Lord made me understand that this place was hell, and these souls were dead, transformed into beasts by sin. Among them, I saw religious persons as well. It seemed that I was taken to a desolate place, dark and solitary, where I heard only screams, shrieks, the hissing of snakes, the rattling of chains, wheels, iron, and barrels so large that every strike seemed to make the entire world sink. I had no help to turn to. I could not speak. I could not call upon the Lord. I thought it was a place of chastisement and God's wrath upon me for the many offenses I had committed against His divine majesty. And before me were all my sins. I felt a burning fire but saw no flames, only blows falling upon me. I saw no one. At one point, I felt a flame of fire approaching me, striking me, but I saw nothing. Oh, what torment! I cannot describe it, and even the memory of it makes me tremble. Finally, amidst such great darkness, it seemed to me that I saw a small light, as if in the air. Gradually, it expanded so much that it seemed to free me from such pain, but I saw nothing more. In an instant, I found myself in a low, black, and foul-smelling region, filled with the bellowing of bulls, the howling of lions, and the hissing of snakes. A great mountain rose steeply before me, entirely covered with basilisks bound together. The living mountain was a tumult of dreadful curses. This was the upper hell, meaning the mild hell. Indeed, the mountain opened wide, and on its exposed sides, I saw multitudes of souls and demons entwined in chains of fire. The demons, extremely furious, tormented the souls who screamed in despair. Behind this mountain followed others, even more hideous, whose innards were the scene of monstrous and indescribable torments. At the bottom of the abyss, I saw a monstrous throne constructed from terrifying demons. At its center stood a chair formed from the heads of the abyss. Satan sat upon it in his indescribable horror, observing all the damned. The angels explained to me that the vision of Satan creates the torment of hell, just as the vision of God creates the delight of heaven. Meanwhile, I noticed that the mute cushion of the chair was Judas and other desperate souls like him. I asked the angels whose souls these were and received this terrible answer. They were dignitaries of the church and religious superiors. In this abyss, I saw a rain of falling souls. I heard screams, plaintive voices, blasphemies, and curses against God. I saw monsters, snakes, and boundless flames. In an even deeper place were thousands of souls. These were the souls of murderers, over whom hung a torch with a massive wheel. The wheel turned, causing the entire hell to tremble. Suddenly, the press would fall upon the souls, nearly reducing them to one, so that each participated in the punishment of the other. Then they would return to their prior state. There were some souls with a book in their hands. Demons struck these souls with fiery rods on their mouths, iron clubs on their heads, and sharp spikes piercing their ears. These were the souls of those religious wretches who adapted the rule to their own use. Other souls were sealed in sacks and thrust by devils into the maw of a hideous dragon, which consumed them endlessly. These were the souls of misers. Others boiled, submerged in a lake of filth. From time to time lightning flashed. The souls would be reduced to ashes but then return to their original state. The sins they had committed were the gravest imaginable. All the streets of hell were strewn with razors, knives, sharp cleavers, and monsters everywhere. And a voice cried out, "It will always be like this. Always, always." I was brought before the face of Lucifer. Surrounding him were the most graceful souls, who had done nothing for God or his glory. He held them beneath his feet like a cushion and ceaselessly beat the souls of those who had failed in their vows.
Now, we will delve into the no less harrowing vision of hell seen by the Spanish mystic, Sister Maria Josefa Menendez. She was a young nun from the early 20th century whose mystical experiences gained particular significance due to their realistic and detailed descriptions. In her revelations, Sister Maria Josefa, at the command of Christ himself, was tasked with exploring the torments of condemned souls to warn humanity about the devastating consequences of sin and the rejection of God's mercy. Sister Josefa described hell as a place overflowing with the suffering of souls consumed by unrelenting fire, not only physical but also spiritual. According to her accounts, the greatest torment in hell was the awareness of one's own choices. The damned were suffocated by remorse and hatred, unable to undo the decisions that had eternally separated them from God. Sister Josefa heard their piercing cries, filled with reproach and boundless despair, and their pleas for help remained unanswered.
In an instant, I found myself in hell, not dragged there as in other instances, but as the damned must fall into it themselves. The soul rushes into hell of its own accord, throwing itself in, as if wanting to disappear from the sight of God, to hate and curse him. My soul plunged into an abyss whose bottom could not be seen, for it was vast. I saw hell as always, caverns and fire. Although no bodily forms were visible, the torments tore apart the damned souls, who recognized each other, as if their bodies were present. I was thrust into a fiery crevice and crushed as if between red-hot plates, while red-hot needles and sharp points pierced my body. I felt as if my tongue were being ripped out in vain, driving me to the extreme with monstrous pain. It seemed as if my eyes were bursting from their sockets, likely from the fire that burned them horribly. One cannot move a finger for relief or change position. The body is as if paralyzed. The ears are deafened by terrifying, disordered screams that never cease for even a moment. Everyone is engulfed by a nauseating stench, a suffocating odor like rotting flesh burning with tar and sulfur. I experienced all this as on other occasions, and while these torments are dreadful, they would be nothing if the soul did not suffer. But it suffers indescribably from the deprivation of God's presence. I saw and heard some of the damned souls crying out because of the eternal torments they must endure, especially their hands. I think they must have stolen during life, for they cried, "Cursed hands, where is now what you took?" Other souls, screaming, blamed their tongues or their eyes, each lamenting the cause of their sin. "Now you pay monstrously for the pleasures you indulged in, O my body. And you, O body, desired this. For a moment of pleasure, an eternity of pain." It seems to me that in hell, souls accuse themselves particularly for sins of impurity. While I was in that abyss, I saw impure people falling downward, and the terrible screams that came from their mouths cannot be described or understood. Eternal damnation, I deceived myself, I am lost. I will be here forever, 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 and there will be no remedy. A young girl screamed in despair, cursing the sinful pleasure she had given her body in life and cursing her parents, who had given her too much freedom to follow fashion and worldly entertainments. Everything I have written is only a pale shadow compared to what is truly suffered in hell.
In conclusion, there remains one key question. What will we do with what we have heard? The saints' visions of hell are not merely vivid images or products of imagination. They are profound warnings, coming from those who have crossed the boundary of the visible to deliver to us cautions from beyond. Hell, though terrifying, remains a consequence of free will, a gift each of us has received from God. His love is infinite, but He respects our decisions, even if they lead to eternal separation from Him. Does hell exist? Given the numerous testimonies, the answer seems more than obvious. However, it is not the existence of hell that matters most, but the fact that each of us has a choice. Every day, in every action, every word. It is up to us whether we will follow the path that leads to light and love, or allow ourselves to be deceived by choices that separate us from God. Ultimately, our actions, words, and decisions will be judged, and we will bear the consequences ourselves. Let this be our reflection. Hell is not a destiny, but a choice that is made in the silence of every human heart.